This is Journey Through Persia, Episode 5, written by Abdul Malik Hashmi and read by Sonia. A memorable journey. It was a hot day on July 11, 2001. The air shimmered with heat, and the sun burned down on everything. I reached the bus station on time, where people were moving about in a hurry, some carrying bags, others calling out to vendors. I had bought my ticket the day before for 250 rupees, and now all I had to do was board the bus. As I stepped inside, I noticed that most of the seats were already taken. My ticket did not have a specific seat number, but I was lucky to find a seat right behind the driver. It was a good spot, comfortable, with a clear view of the road ahead and easy access to get on and off. The bus had only traveled a short distance when the driver suddenly slowed down. On the side of the road stood two foreigners, dressed in traditional shalwar kameez. One was a young woman with a neatly draped dupatta over her head, and the other was a well-groomed young man, about 20 or 22 years old. The conductor signaled for the driver to stop, and they were allowed to board. As soon as they stepped inside, the conductor's rough voice rang in my ears, "Give up this seat." I was shocked. The seat that had seemed like my good fortune a few moments ago was now being taken away and given to the two foreigners. Without any concern for my surprise or disappointment, the conductor turned to me and said, "Sit on that wooden box." I protested, but my words were ignored. The whistle blew, the bus started moving again, and I had no choice but to settle on a wooden crate placed in the aisle. I found myself sitting uncomfortably close to the young foreign man. Every time the bus jolted, we bumped into each other. At first, this felt like nothing but an inconvenience. But as time passed, the awkwardness faded. A quiet understanding developed between us. Then came a few polite words, exchanged glances, and soon, what had started as an unpleasant situation turned into an unexpected companionship. Sometimes, in life, small incidents lead to new connections. This short journey was one of those moments, a simple event that remained bright in my memory for years to come. Nectar and Leena, the story of a wandering traveler. Nectar was a traveler from distant Belgium, a man drawn to the roads, following their call without knowing where they might lead. At 18, he left home after a disagreement with his beloved, unaware that his fate would be a series of endless wanderings. He drifted through the streets of Europe, lost himself in the vastness of Australia, and blended into the colors of Malaysia. Eventually, he arrived in Nepal. He believed that his travels were not without purpose, that the roads taught him things no book ever could. It was in Nepal that he met Leena, a girl who, like him, refused to stay in one place. Her parents had settled in Belgium, but Leena chose a life of wandering. Together, these two travelers moved from India to Pakistan, Iran to Turkey, and finally toward Greece and Belgium. They were like gusts of wind, unbound by borders or walls. When Nectar boarded the bus, a leather-covered object hung from his shoulder. At first glance, it looked like a rifle. Curious, I asked about it. He laughed and said, "This is not a gun. It is a yadaki." Then, with the enthusiasm of a storyteller, he explained that it was a musical instrument of the Aboriginal people of Australia, a hollowed-out tree trunk that produced deep, resonant sounds. He had learned to play it in Australia and promised to show me its music when we reached Iran. Nectar was not a tall man, but there was something intense about him. His sharp blue eyes had the roughness of a wanderer, as if he were not merely looking at things but searching for something beyond. His long hair was wrapped in a heavy turban, which had slipped slightly to the back of his head, and his unkempt beard reached his chest. He looked like a Kandahari shepherd. I joked, "Why do you keep such a long beard?" He smiled, with a hint of bitterness, and said, "When I first traveled from Australia to an Islamic country, I wondered how people would treat me without a beard. The Western media had painted a certain image of Muslims in my mind. But when I reached Malaysia, reality was very different from what I had imagined." And Leena? She was a quiet young girl of 18 or 19. Her appearance was ordinary, but her brown hair and blue eyes clearly showed she was from another land. She spoke little, so most of my conversations were with Nectar. He sat closer to me, and the loud Iranian and Balochi music playing in the bus forced us to raise our voices to hear each other. Nectar, however, had found a way to escape the noise. He had stuffed bits of tissue paper into his ears. I wondered if a traveler who wished to see the world also needed to listen to it. This journey was not smooth or easy. The road was rough, and the bus swayed wildly, as if it had a mind of its own. Some parts of the road were newly paved, but most of it looked ancient, as if caravans had been passing through for centuries. The driver seemed lost in the loud music, treating the bus as though it were a dancing creature that moved to its own rhythm, swerving left and right unpredictably. But the bus was not just carrying passengers, it was also a moving marketplace. Basmati rice sacks were tied to the roof, while more were stacked inside the aisle. Extra passengers were sitting on top of them. To get off the bus, one had to step over these sacks, crushing them underfoot. The windows were old and slid open only with effort, allowing blasts of hot air inside. The heat was fierce, like standing near the mouth of an oven. When night fell, the air cooled slightly, but the road remained just as unforgiving. The journey from Quetta to Taftaan. The journey from Quetta to Taftaan looked straightforward on the map, but in reality, the road was broken in many places. Some parts were completely worn out, and in others, bridges had collapsed due to heavy rains. When the bus had to leave the road and move onto dirt paths, it felt like it would get stuck at any moment. Every sharp turn made our hearts race, fearing the bus might tip over. Inside the bus, there were not just passengers but also bags of rice, containers of cooking oil, and other goods, as if they too were on an uncertain journey. Every time the bus leaned to one side, Nectar, the short and thin traveler sitting next to me, would fall against my shoulder. When the bus tilted the other way, I would end up leaning on him. Leena, who sat quietly, seemed detached from the whole experience. The entire night passed like this. It was less of a journey and more like being tossed around in a stormy sea. At dawn, when a faint light began to seep through the windows, we reached Nakundi. The road was now smooth, wide, and well paved. The bus moved forward gently, as if the struggles of the night had been left behind. At that moment, the driver played a recitation of the Quran by Sheikh Mohammed al-Muhaisini. A deep, rhythmic voice filled the space, creating a sense of peace. Nectar, who had been restless all night, suddenly became still. He closed his eyes and listened for a moment. Then he said softly, "I don't understand what he's saying, but there's something about his voice, like the echo of a desert, like a mysterious kind of music that reaches inside me." The bus continued towards Taftaan, and for a while, we all sat quietly, lost in the sound of the recitation. It felt as if the hardships of the road, the shaking of the bus, and the exhaustion of the journey were slowly fading away. Abdulmalik Hashmi, bringing every journey to life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support helps us create even better videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.